So everybody's got their computer pretty low activity, no other programs going on, especially emails shut down, that constantly uses energy. All right, we're going to start very simple, and I want to make sure I get all of these steps in here because I have a very specific path that I want to take you on. All right, first we're going to go over what you're seeing and how you can change your preferences. So who has a mouse with them, a 3-button mouse? Who doesn't? Is just using a trackpad. Okay. The panning and the navigation is going to be a little different for trackpads than 3-button mouse. If you can still get one, or if it's on the way, that's great. It'll make a huge difference. It gives you a lot more control and a lot more ease of control. But once you are in there, okay. Once you're in CLO, okay, go to settings, and then you want to go to user settings. Your graphic options, this isn't something that you want to play with unless you have a different graphic card to go with. View, or yeah, go ahead. It's right at the top, and it says settings at the big toolbar at the top. Your big horizontal menu. Not of the window, but of your screen, right here. You see my mouse moving around?
Oh, okay.
I gotcha. Okay. So the first one in your menu that you really want to look at is View Controls. These can all be set to your own preferences. And you want to think about this when you're using a trackpad. If you're going to be using a trackpad for the whole time, you want to be very specific with this. And later, when you have more time, you can go in and sort of custom do all of this. You have to choose what buttons you like to use in combination with each other, whatever makes sense to you. And you'll see once you get the 3-button mouse, it's a lot simpler to do your panning control and your zoom control. So right now, my zoom is really easy because it's just the scroll button in the middle of my mouse. Panning is when you don't zoom in or anything and you're not rotating, you're just moving across the screen. And all I have to do for that is click my right mouse button and then move my cursor. You can choose your increments to be smaller or bigger, how fast it moves and how fast it zooms. And then right mouse button, you can rotate with that. So this is pretty much default. I like the default. So you can choose that, all right? These get a little more complicated as you go down. The constraint key, Shift, is good to keep it there because that's how we know it as in Illustrator. When you hit Shift, it usually constrains things. When you do it in CLO, it allows you to keep on that singular point, whether you've clicked on it or whether you've put a point down, and then navigate around that using that constraint. Smart panning and autofocus are both good. You want to keep those clicked on. So next, shortcuts. You can program your own shortcuts. Like we have commands and hotkeys. So if that's interesting to you or you want to do that, you do that sort of on your own time because that'll be different for everybody. User interface, the fourth one down on your menu. This is also important. How do you want to see your measurements, or what unit do you want as your measurement? Inches is a good one. Let's all keep the same one for this class so we can stay in step with each other. And then you can have either your mathematical measurements or the line for button width. So I have mine off, so it will just give me my mathematical measurements. Tops, that's fine. Yeah, we usually use tex, right? You know tex in the studio. So your top stitch thread, we go by tex as the unit of measurement for its thickness. USD, currency unit, we don't necessarily need that right now. And then these are some things that can be changed while you're not in your settings. But look, you have the choice to change the default font. And once we start getting into this work, you have all these different color choices in the appearance. So if you don't like these colors that are assigned for when you click on something, when you strengthen a pattern piece, when it's being stitched together, or if it's an inactive stitch, all these colors change. They should be fine as default, but you can change them later if you want something specific that makes better sense to you. That's pretty much everything that you want to look at for this, okay? So later on, take the time to get to know that a little bit better, see your options, and then make your own changes, okay? Okay, next let's talk about the workspace that you have around here. So you'll notice a lot of similarities between this program and Illustrator. Not everything, obviously. It sort of looks like it, the way the menus and the toolbars are set up. Let's start over here on the very left. So we have some panels that are hidden. At least I have them hidden right now. Yours might be open. And I see history and modular configurator. You won't need that in this class. That is more advanced. If you do mess with that and you have an open avatar and garment file, you'll have some shadowy shapes behind it, and you'll just have to right click on it to get it to go away. But you don't necessarily need that. So this arrow right here, when it is up, because I clicked on it, now it's in my space, I'm going to collapse that with the arrow just to make it go away. Your library and history are the ones that are important for this class. Library is going to be where you're finding all of your garments. And under library, you see all of these tabs. Star, that's all your favorites, all your good stuff. This is where we'll be working in. The little cloud with a C in it, that is a cloud-based computing, saving to the Closet cloud. And remember, you do have 3 gigs, but I would save that for rendering if you can. And then this little bag over here brings you to options that you can buy. And when you click on these, it takes you right to the store. So only if you want to buy things do you need to go in there. It's pretty cool, though, to look at. I think there are freelance designers that sell their designs in Closet. I'm not sure exactly, though. Okay, so I'm going back to the star, and it looks different than yours right now, what I have in here, because I have linked all of my folders. So up here at the very last horizontal sort of tool sections with these options or controls right here. Does everybody see where my cursor is? You have a arrow with like a little half of a box or like an upside down bracket. That means you're going to straight up download the files into it. I wouldn't do that. You just need to link them. So that's your plus button over here. The plus button in the middle is going to allow you to link any file that you need. And that's why I keep my hard drive, my external hard drive, with me anytime I'm going to be doing this. I need this with it because I have all my good files, all my big files on here. And we will bring in our files in just a second, but let's finish talking about this really quick. Okay, so when you click on a folder, I'll click on July 28th or folder 1. If you downloaded the folders as the dates, the July 27, 28, 29, all that, you'll just want to rename them. See how I just clicked on it like a normal file in your computer? You can rename it just in order. Do folder 1, folder 2. It's good to keep them separate because they can be in smaller chunks for us to refer to when we need to do exercises. So if I'm in folder 1, and it's taking a second to think about it, this is a program where you have to let it do its thing and not try to rush it. It usually will take a couple seconds to do certain steps. When I hover over something, it'll give me a visual of it. And then you can either double click it to drop it in your workspace or right click it. If I right click it, it gives me option add to workspace or copy the path. You're only ever going to add it to your workspace for this class. And before we get into bringing stuff into the workspace, you have this folder up here. Anytime you open a folder, you'll also have this folder that just looks like a generic folder that's open with a couple dots underneath it. This will take you one step back. So if I double click that, it will take me back to where I was before that. Along those same lines, the history panel is very important. This will give you a line item of each step that you took in the software, so you can then go back to any point in your process and start there again. It's important because sometimes you can't undo as many times as you need to get back to that point. So know that you come into your history panel, look through here, and you can find it, click on it, go back to that point that you liked. The 3D state right here, this is when you're in a point of designing and you want to save it. You're like, ooh, I really like this, but you know what? I'm going to try some crazy stuff right now. I don't know if I'm going to like it. I want to save this specific one with a special header so I can find it easily. And that's the 3D state. So you would just create a new one, whatever stage you were at with your design, and it will save it for you. So now I'm going to collapse my history, and I usually leave my library open at least until I put something in my workspace. So going into the workspace right here, we've got two windows, or you should have two windows when it opened up as default. This little center median, you can drag it to emphasize one or the other. You can undock it by clicking this little icon right here and say, I would rather have it on this side or this side. Depends on your preference. This is your 3D window, this one right here. And remember what I was saying about the 3 icons down at the bottom here. This is how you toggle back and forth or get both of them. You'll see that split screen icon. That gives you both, or should. 3D is 3D. 2D will take you to 2D. And let me see if I can get this back now. Yes. Okay. So those 3 icons at the bottom is how you control it quickly. And then you have one more button down here. It looks like a little circle with an arrow. That's refresh to default. So if you like the split screen and want to go back to that quickly, that's that. All right, so moving forward, let's talk about before we get to tools, let's talk about this side over here. So 3D and then 2D. We have tools that correspond to both windows. Some tools work in both. Doesn't matter where you clicked on it. You can click on this selection tool right here on 2D, and it works the same as this transform pattern tool over here in 2D. So as well, the 2D window has its panels too, and it's Object Browser and Property Editor. So I just opened up both of these. You'll be working in this a lot. The Object Browser, sort of think of it as your BOM, your bill of material, all of your trim, your buttons, all the things that are used, your thread, everything. And so you have the option to save things just like the Illustrator library. You'll have symbols and objects. They're called objects in this software. And you can then edit their properties. Whatever one you are in, if you're in buttons, you can click on that button. And then I want to edit that property of it. Change the color, change the thickness, how many buttonholes it has. So before we'll get into those, more extensively, of course, but just to show you those 2 panels really quickly. So Object Browser and Property Editor. So the tools then, the ones that we're going to be starting with are the really simple ones. Selection tool and Transform Pattern tool in the 2D. So at the very top here, you see that arrow? That's the Simulate button. And it's basically like turning gravity on in the software. It allows your fabric to drape. It allows your stitching to happen. Whatever sewing steps that you've applied to your patterns will perform, it will happen, and it will also drape. When you have this simulation button turned on, it's using a lot of processing power. So you don't want to try to make changes while you're simulating. You want to see the simulation and then click off, make new changes. The only way that you can adjust fabric while it's on a garment or while it's on an avatar is if it's in simulation and you can pull it like real fabric. So it must be simulated to be able to do that, and you'll see what I mean in a little while. Hotkey for simulation is just the space bar. Usually is. Maybe we just need some garments in there. Okay, so space bar to quickly simulate. The one below that is your selection tool. This is like your direct selection in Illustrator. This is what we'll be using today. And you can see how many things. If you run your cursor over all of these, there are lots of different things. Like rearrange your 3D patterns to put them all back up into the correct space. How to button, how to add graphics to your garments, how to add piping, all of that. Zipper. On your 2D side, this is your transform pattern tool. It also allows you to edit shapes of patterns, but it is for selecting mostly in the 2D, okay? And this is where you'll be doing the majority of your action, your stitching. Remember how I said when you choose a tool in one window, you can usually use it in the other window. You can stitch together a pattern over in 2D, or you can stitch together a pattern or a seam in 3D as well. It's just how you prefer to look at it. Okay, I think that's everything for the workspace area. So we're going to go into using the gizmo. And this is starting very slow, so I know some of you are like, oh, we're way past this already. Go on. So let's start linking a folder then and bring some stuff into here. Does everybody have their, at least folder 1 saved to their hard drive? You guys don't have the Google folder shared with you, correct? Okay. So let me add your name really quickly. Does anybody else not have the Google folder for exercises and all of it?
Would it be under shared?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I got it.
Don't think you got it? Do a little search in Drive and say, let me tell you exactly. And search for CLO 3D course SP22. I have Alexis Jones here that should be shared with you. Really? Okay.
Is it Jones A10?
Oh, maybe I did a different Alexis Jones. So is it, when I pull it up, I'm doing Alexis Jones, but is it just Jones A?
So it's going to be Jones A10.
Jones A10.
Yep.
There we go. Okay. Hopefully that does it. Miguel, what does your email start with?
GEO or GE, just George.
Okay. George M at VCU?
George M. Al.
George ML, here you are. And then Megan? Curtis M.E. There we go. Okay. You should have that folder now, or in a couple seconds. And then once you get that, you'll see these 3 files in here: exercises, prints and garment files, and student folders. The exercises and prints and garments files, those 2 folders you'll need to download somewhere. Hard drive or external, somewhere that has enough space and that you can always have with you for this class. The student folder is where we're going to be putting our bigger assignments. We're uploading them. But for time's sake, anybody that doesn't have this downloaded yet, just go into the exercises and download folder 1. That's all you need for today.
And it's okay if it's downloaded as a zip file.
Yeah, you'll want to unpack it. So if you have a utility, which you probably do on your Mac, you'll have a utility to unpack it. And then if you're just doing the folder 1 for today, you can save it right to your hard drive so it's easy to get to. Has everybody found a special place to save their files or still working on it a little bit? Yeah. That'll be okay. Everybody figuring it out or having any issues anywhere?
It's saying it's zipping, but I'm not seeing any progress with download.
Okay, so it's still thinking about it? Okay, that's all right.
Oh, it's there, okay.
Is it doing something weird or is it okay?
It just like uploaded a bunch of, or like Photoshop files. Yeah. Onto a bunch of photos and then deleted it.
Oh. If you downloaded the folder just randomly, sort of, without choosing where it goes, just look in your downloads, and you usually can just drag it onto your desktop or search your computer to find it. If you are there and you're ready to move on, you're going to go into this workspace and link your file. So the plus button right here. When you press on it, a window will come up and you're going to do the normal search. And remember, if you downloaded it before these names changed, just the earliest one, July 27th, and open it. And it should take just a couple of seconds and it'll pop right up. But because it's linking it, it shouldn't take long at all. Once you've linked it, just click on folder 1. It requires me to double click it. It might just be a single click for you. Everybody good at this point? Riley, you good? Brian, you good? All right. So let's play around with this stuff. You guys ready? You're probably like, yes, come on. So the first one we want to do is this really simple one. It's that 100_3D navigation intro. What's wrong, Cheyenne? Oh, I thought you were saying stop. Where'd Deja go? Did she step out for a second? Oh no, okay, so she's missing this. Well, it's not too much. She'll be able to catch up quick. Huh? Okay. Okay, so again, I'm hovering over it. It gives you a visual of what this is. And it doesn't look like much right now. It just looks like 3 different perspectives. You can't even tell it's a cube, but it is a cube. So if I double click it, again, you can right click it and choose add to workspace, but if you double click it, it's adding it to your workspace. Now, if I had another file open during that, it would want you to specify if you want to add it to the space or overwrite the file and open it fresh. And you'll see that when we open up the next one. Okay, so it looks just like a blue square right now, really boring, huh? This is where you're going to figure out what your controls are doing if you're using a mouse or a trackpad. So again, my mouse is set up and my user settings are set up to rotate by just holding my right button and pulling. So from that point, you'll be able to tell that it's not a flat 2D box or square, it's a full-on 3D box. Now this is super simple just because we're trying to figure out our controls. My center scroll wheel is zoom. I have to hold down Alt and my right side of my mouse to pan like this. And again, if you are like, I think there can be a better combination of keys for these operations, make your own custom setup. It doesn't have to be the same for everybody. Those are your main three functions just with this basic selection tool that you can pan, zoom, and rotate. You'll see in a minute that when you shift, we were talking about that constraint, shift being the key that you hold down for constraining it. But it will lock you into a certain axis and keep you right there when you hold shift. So you probably won't use it much, at least for the beginning. And we'll always reiterate the hotkeys and commands throughout the course. In the 2D, or the 3D over here, in your right side window, you see the pattern for it. It's just a straight up square. So there's not much to do here. And this technically isn't a full pattern because there's no fabric here, but I'm guessing this is just for the exercise. So is anybody having trouble figuring out their navigation with the trackpad? Did you undip it? It is compressed because they're all big files. Yeah, so you're both on Mac, right? So for Mac, it will download as like a little glue situation with a zipper in it. And then you want to click on that, and it usually starts automatically expanding. So I tried searching, doing a computer search for folder 1, or however you saved it. Can you check it in your download? Just for today, do the folder 1 because Yeah, it's going to take way longer to do the exercise, the entire folder.
She can only
Just to do that, let that work when you have it sitting down.
There's sustainable ones too. I don't know
See
if
if that one does any differently. And you can, if you're inside folder, you want to go one back to folder.
So I like don't like buying myself stuff.
All right. So everybody feel good about their navigation at this point, and maybe thinking, yeah, I'm going to change some things, but so far, you're good? All right. So let's then open up a different one. Let's go to this 100 grid selection. I'm going to double click it, and you'll see what I was talking about earlier, that it gives you an option that you're going to open it or add it to the workspace, which then means I'm going to have a cube and all these little grids. And is it the garment? Is it avatar? There's only a garment to choose here. So we go, okay. And I don't want to add it. I want the box to go away. So I'm going to open it. And you should get these little tiles of fabric. They are all suspended in air right now, the 3D window. If I were to simulate right now, every single one of my squares would fall to the ground. Unless you were to freeze it. Freeze all of these little patterns. Uh-huh.
So can you have multiple projects open up at the same time? Or
It's working on one at a time, but you can have multiple avatars in your workspace. Yeah, don't simulate yet. You want to cover over your tools and freeze time with 3D. Try to 3D rearrange, and if it doesn't get you back to it,
Why did it say controls in the property map?
okay, here you go. And that's a good point. So Sophie just brought up, I don't know if I said it before, but Control Z is your best friend here, just like Illustrator, Photoshop. Will get you back one space. So that's a really simple one that we all know from Illustrator and Photoshop. Did it work? The blue. So you're up close to it, and I think it's 2 finger for the trackpad balloon. And then it's probably alt. If there's some navigation that you can't figure out, you're like, let's up to you want to go back into your settings, go to user settings, and see what buttons are required to be pushed while you're trackpad. It'll tell you what's required. You got it to know.
I just like since it wasn't showing my background, it's just like
All right. So with this, we're going to talk about our different options with selection. So our selection tool, we've been using it. We're already in it. And it corresponds with this transform pattern tool over here. It works the same way as Illustrator when you select or when you drag your box, the marquee, around certain ones. It'll select all of them. If you want to select individuals, you'll click on one and hold Shift. If you want very specific ones that aren't touching each other, and you can also click them again to undo it if you made a mistake on one of them. The exercise today, this is beginning the steps. When I come around, I'm going to want to see your selection. So it's going to be selecting individuals, selecting multiple, using your marquee, which is, and we're going to have to look it up for the trackpad, but if you're using a mouse, it's just clicking on the back of the workspace, the background with the right, and then you get your marquee that you can do very specific selection. I think this takes a really long time, and I almost never ever use this because you could click those four boxes just with Shift and it would be the same. When you do want to use this is if you have a very irregular shape or multiple irregular shapes that you have to get a specific area around. The thing with this marquee tool is that you have to encompass the entire shape. It's not like the selection tool, the V command in Illustrator, where you can select a portion of it and the whole thing's selected. If you miss any little bit of it, it won't select it. So you gotta encompass the entire thing. Like this for a second. Does not select. Okay. So, and you can move those around. This is an introduction to your gizmo right here. This little blue circle with all of these different directions. That's called your gizmo. And it's going to be crucial when you're trying to line up pattern pieces. If you're not using the arrangement points on your avatar, you'll have to use this gizmo. So grab one of these little boxes and see how the gizmo works. You can rotate it in all of these directions, all of these different axes. Notice that there is a little square in the top right section and a blue line that connects to it. This is your fourth dimension where you can push it back. You can't tell that it's moving so much, but I press down on that blue line and I'm scrolling back and it's moving. So let me show you this way. It's not as noticeable, but will be when we get into the garments down here. You see how you do have a good side and a bad side to your fabric pieces, white and gray. We'll go through all those options to change that, change the thickness and stuff over here in your vertical toggle menu. I'm a little bit bummed because Wednesday we don't have class, this class. And yeah, if you can see on the schedule, it's because we have a 3-day faculty thing. And so it's like stopping the class right when we're getting into good stuff. And this is going to leave you like hanging. But we're going to have a project, and I'm guessing that everybody is more into having a lax start than a really hard, fast start. Okay, so everybody sort of solid with the gizmo. Oh, another cool thing that really quick before, and this will be reiterated later. So if I make a selection, Control-Shift-I will select the inverse. So once you get really familiar, those types of things will save you lots of time. Control-Shift-I. Okay, let's move on. Everybody feel solid with that file? Okay. Let's open up now 100 selection basic garment. So that's the one with the jean jacket and the jersey dress. So if you double click that one, I do not want to save this file that I'm working in right here. It's going to ask you if you want to save. No. Do I want to add it to this? No, I just want to open this new avatar up. And now here we have two options instead of one option. Do you want just the garment, or do you want the garment and the avatar? Maybe you want just the avatar, but be very intentional with this window because it's asking you for exactly what you want. We want both, and we want to just open it. Did anybody else try simulation when you're in the grids? It was fun. We'll do it in a second. If you get this, it's not important. You can just X out of it. Okay, so this one now, you have a lot of patterns in here. You want to practice selecting here, multiple, using your marquee to get exact selections. If you have these selected in your 2D window, they also become selected in your 3D window, which helps you recognize where patterns are in relation to the entire garment. So if I wanted to know, what is that pattern? I have no idea what that pattern is. Oh, it's that bright yellow outline. It's her right side of her collar, you know. Now when you're selecting, here's the last thing that I'm going to ask you to do for the exercise for selection is that you can select things by the same property. Because we have two different fabrics here, we can go in and select just the lightweight denim or the gray jersey. And this will become helpful when you want to apply different properties to just one type of fabric. So to do that, I'm going to click on one piece of this, one piece of the thing that I want to of the property that I want to select all of, right? I'm going to right click, and at the top of this menu you have some options. Do you want to select all with the same particle distance? We haven't talked about particle distance yet, so that's not it. The same layer? No, we want the fabric. Huh. So it only selected 4 of them. There might be a different property for these others. But in any case, you will likely have different particle distances for different fabrics, but for the most part, something like this would not be different. Like you wouldn't want it to have a different particle distance. So that does most of them. Yeah, there's some difference in the property, but that's how you get there from that point. Right-clicking on that piece that you selected. Yeah?
This is probably jumping ahead too much, but how do you tell CLO that, like, if we're creating something outside of this document, that this is one fabric and the other one is another fabric?
How do you
Like,
tell
how does
Chloe
it
that?
know, like, if I was just, like, making two separate comments out, like, in my own file, how do you,
Like you're creating an original design and you want properties of one fabric, but you also have another fabric.
right,
Yeah, so it's called normal maps and it's assigned to a specific fabric, and it's programmed not by us. These are all imported fabric properties. So when you pull a fabric, like say I go in here, and this is what you guys will be playing with later, not today, but you have lots of different options. You can search up here. Let's say we want a silk.
where is that again? Other garment?
You should have fabric already. Does everybody have fabric? Okay, this is way ahead right now, but just to answer your question, you would have your object browser, right? I have a lightweight denim, I have a chiffon, and a cotton jersey. So this is how you pull your normal maps over, and then you would pull that square over to your patterns, and you can have multiple fabrics in there.
So we're restricted to only the fabrics side? They're in the.
You can get other fabrics. You probably won't need them. I mean, it's not every fabric in the world, but there's a good amount.
Can you mess with like the colors?
Oh yeah, we're gonna do prints, we're gonna do colors, we're gonna do like graphic appearance of the fabric if we want it to be glossy or velvety or that type of stuff. We're gonna the particle distance you heard me talking about earlier deals with how close the digital particles live together. So when it's a higher number, your fabric will act like a higher quality and more closely to real life. But it takes more processing power. So you want to keep it at a low particle distance while you're working, and then to see what it really looks like, you put it in a higher particle distance. It's good for gathers and stuff. But yes, we will definitely get there, and we're going to go all through that. So really quick before this is our last file that we're going over today, and so I can come around and see everybody how they're doing and check them off on the exercises. Your avatar right here. You have key commands and hotkeys for position of your avatar. The numbers are where you do that. So it is actually on a number pad, like a square, not as a line. So they're a little bit jumbled up. But 2 is straight on front. So if you get lost, you've zoomed out crazy or zoomed in crazy, you just press 2 and it, oops. See, I was way out and I couldn't even see my avatar. I pressed 2 and it brought me right back. 6 is a side, 8 is back. Whoop, that's an unfortunate angle. Hey, go up. Okay. So you'll want to check those out, and it'll take a second to get used to which ones are your important ones that you use all the time. But they are the quickest way to get right to a specific perspective of your avatar. So your toggle menu, your vertical toggle menu over here, this is going to be very important in a second, And we'll have to incrementally go through this toggle. Are you raising your hand, Adora, or just stretching? Okay. You're okay. So this first one we want to know about is the avatar control right here. And it's somewhat in the middle of this menu. When you press this first one right here, it makes the avatar go away. Right? Disappear completely. The one that looks like little dots at her head, hands, and feet, that is your arrangement point setup. When you have your arrangement points on, this is when you can lock in pattern pieces to the body, and it just sort of suggests the best location for pattern pieces. And it lets you move up and down, and it gives you a little shadow on the avatar body to tell where the closest and best relationship is. And I'm not necessarily going into it because it's a little bit ahead. We sort of got to stay in a good sequence. These are going to be later. That is a bit too much to go over. But yeah, what are you guys thinking? Do you have questions right now? Do you have any issues you've run into?
How do you do using draw to select the pieces? So you have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, so let's see. So with the mouse, it's double clicking right. I mean, not right, but left on the background in 2D. Did you get it? Okay. So here are the 4 things that I want to check when I come around, you guys. Okay, just a individual. When you're in, it can be in this last file is fine. It doesn't have to go into the grid file. So selecting multiple pieces with shift, unselecting while you're still holding shift, selecting with the marquee tool, and then selecting by same properties, similar properties. So it'll just be a quick run through. You don't have to do anything fancy. I just want to make sure that everybody got those little operations. Does anybody want me to go over any of that before I come around? Want me to just do it real quick?
Yeah, just to make sure you said shift, marquee, like basic selection and properties.
Yes. It's not the shift part though. Well, for multiple, but for the marquee and properties, let me show you guys real quick. So I'm gonna turn this avatar's arrangement points off because we don't need that right now. I'm in my selection tool, which automatically highlights my transform pattern tool. And it's a nice bright blue, so it's really obvious that it's selected, which is good. So I'm going to check for multiple selection. So I've selected one. I want to hold on shift. And then I want to see you unselect something, which is easy. It's just clicking it again for a second time while you hold down shift though. The third one is the marquee tool. So left button on a mouse is probably just a single finger on the trackpad. On the background in the 2D window, I'm going to double click and then it gives me my marquee drawing tool. Both are selected. the last one I want to see is with this selection tool. I'm going to click off those two just on the background. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to select a few because there are different properties in this. And then with those 5 selected or 6 selected, I'm going to right click on that panel and I have all of these options. You'll want to look through this just to read them and see what we'll be going over, because looking at them ahead of time is great. But for this selection, you want to come all the way up to the top, select all the same property, and I want to select the same fabric. That's the property I want to go with. Nearly all of them. I think I'm missing a waistband or something. But that's how you do that. Everybody saw that pretty good? Okay. So we have a good amount of time. I want to go over the homework, and let's talk about the research that needs to happen, because we're going to have this little slow area because Wednesday's a no class day. I might put up a supplemental video for Wednesday just so it keeps everything fresh. It won't be a big thing, but your homework that's going to be due, remember, we have a new assignment situation. Okay, so if we look at the calendar, we would see that this mood board is your first bigger assignment that's due. February 2nd. It's a Wednesday. We'll have an in-class critique. So this is a normal mood board. Everybody's familiar with that, whether you're using Photoshop or whatever software to create. You can do Google Slides. You'll see the things that it asks for, the criteria like dimensions and stuff at the bottom. The really important stuff I put in purple just to stand out a little more. But let me read this to you real quick. Research a video game in which you appreciate the aesthetic and/or theme. This video game must use characters that are of human proportions, or they got to be human-like. You know, it can't be like really weird monsters or big, you know, things like that we can make patterns for. You will need to do a character profile later, so no weird monsters, for example. Consider the color scheme or mood of the game. What are the defining qualities of the game? What is the story of the game? What are the characters already wearing? Write one paragraph describing your interpretation of the game. You will share this paragraph when presenting your mood board during critique. Use this as a way to paint a vivid and thorough picture of your game's overall narrative. Anything you think is interesting or important to share about your game, this is the little blurb that you want to write. And this is not only to help your presentation, but it gets you thinking about what does make up this game? What should I be pulling from when I'm researching trends and colors and stuff? What makes sense with this game? So you want to, in this paragraph, describe the objective, the characters, their attitudes, the clothes they wear, the environment they exist in, etc. Before you start collecting images for your mood board, look into the current trends on WGSN and WWD. Those are subscriptions that the school gets for you. You can get them through the library website. And I think it's up in one of our pages. I'll make it more accessible to you guys. So when you're researching those trends, what trends do you see that relate to your game? What trends would be likely a likely development from the current style of your game. Look for trends in colors, textures, fabrics, and technologies. Be sure to write a small blurb on the bottom of your paragraph, just like a sentence or two, to talk about the trends and that you chose and why they fit with your video game. You need to have at least one addition to your inspiration that came from current trend research, whether it's a texture or a fabric, color. Create a mood board indicating the aesthetic direction you plan to take your designs. Keep in mind the future assignments that need to come from this. Color and texture are very important. I say this because we have a color story that we have to do, that board, and fabric. So you want to consider this and make sure you have enough inspiration to give you material for that. 10 images. So some people really like simple aesthetic. That's totally fine. 10 images can look like nothing, or it can look very busy. But if you don't have 10 images, you don't have enough material to pull from. It can be very subtle. It can just be on the edge of your board a texture that opacity is. Are you guys on the phone back there? There's a new policy. Don't forget about phone policy this semester, just because we don't have a lot of time. Just use your computer for inspiration. So those assignments have to align with that. And then here's how you want to upload it. PDF as normal. You want to be sure that you are putting it in your student folder, your specific folder. And that's the third folder in the Google folder shared with you guys. Landscape orientation. So it's all ready for you if you're doing Google Slides. If you're doing it in Photoshop, try not to make it bigger than 11 by 14. That'll give you a good dimension to print if you do that later for your portfolio and you think this is a really solid project and you want to add it in a print version. And then label your mood board _ your last name, and then drop it right into your student folder. So it keeps everything super organized and you can find things easily. But again, that's a little bit off. You have a good amount of time to do this research. I'm telling you now because we're going to have this class day that we're not in and we're losing time. You can be doing this and getting it out of the way if you don't have other pressing things for classes. So I think that's it. Any questions about that one? Yeah, Deja?
Why don't we have class on Wednesday?
The faculty has this 3-day long thing that everybody has to attend, mandatory.
Is that for like all like classes, or is it just like the 8:30 blocks?
Oh, well, it is for Wednesday. If the instructor is doing it, the that first day is only half day till noon, 8 to noon, but the Thursday and Friday are all day long. So you might have other cancellations, but they'll definitely tell you. It should have already by now. You okay? Oh, just this Wednesday we don't have class already, and it's really unfortunate timing, and I don't. I wish it wasn't like that. But like I said, I'm going to try to, maybe I'll gauge you guys. Should I try to find like a little supplemental video to keep you guys in it and going, or would you rather like a little sort of breather break and easy start with all your other classes? Easy break. Ryan's the only one who's like, okay. No, you say. Okay. like you're outvoted. Okay, so I think that is almost everything. Let me check really quick in my brain to make sure. If there are things, Miguel and Megan, that seem unclear about the class, let's talk afterwards, and you can ask me whatever questions you like. I think that's everything. Okay. So then it's 10:10. We have 40 minutes. While you are not in class, if you want to continue, you can go right to close set or just open up these files that you already have. These are all of our exercise files, and just play around. Hover over your tools, see what happens. There are many, many videos of tutorial videos for CLO. So if you want to get a little bit of a head start, totally go for it. It will take a couple times, just like everything. Illustrator or sewing up something, it takes 2 or 3 times before it gets really solid. You know, so seeing it beforehand would be really beneficial. But we are going to go into, so next time we meet, which is Monday, we'll be doing all of these exercises. So this one is really cool. It's dropping these sheets. You have to position the sheets over the box perfectly, and then you simulate, and they all have to fall in the box. But they're easy. You guys will see that it's super easy. This one is placing your fabric tiles over like little pedestals, and they have to drape perfectly. The more centered it is, the higher the grade. Same with this table. You're placing this. This would be an easy one to practice if you wanted to go in and do extra.
Question.
Yeah.
So is there a way to like onion skin the fabric, or like make it change the opacity so that like you can see the things underneath it? Like if you're trying to like lay one thing over the other.
I think I'm gonna have to check on that because it sounds like I've done that, but I'm not sure if I'm thinking about Illustrator. So let me get back to you on that. So if you want to practice a little bit, you can go into this file, this 003, and you can see it's just a table and tablecloth, and you have to go every perspective to see if it's exactly in the middle. It will fall differently if you don't have it parallel. This is good for using your number hotkeys to see if it's centered. And then when you're all set up, you can zoom out and get a good perspective of it, and then hit simulation. And you want to see if your points are pretty much at the same area, which it's okay. It could be a little better. But while you're simulating now, you have the opportunity to sort of zhuzh it. I want that side to be a tiny bit longer. And you have to give it a second sometimes, especially if your processor is a little bit smaller. You need to let it think about it. And you'll start to feel the difference of letting it snap, of pulling your fabric and sort of letting it snap versus having a more controlled pull. But yeah, that's a good one to practice. We're going to do that anyway in our our class, so don't feel like you need to go forward, but that's an easy one. And remember, space bar to simulate or not simulate. All right, I'm gonna come around. Anybody have questions? You guys ready to check off exercises and then I'll let you go? So you guys, these exercises will be a super easy grade. If you are in Canvas really quickly, yeah. So look at this really quick before you start talking and stuff. Your grade weights, this is finalized because I was able to thoroughly get our assignments set up. So your quizzes and discussions, like our discussion board we had over the weekend, plus any quiz like our syllabus quiz, we won't have a lot of those, but 10%, that's 10% of your grade. In-class exercises, all 10 of them will be 25% of your grade. These are gonna be super easy 100s. Your assignments, these bigger ones, 30%. Those are the ones that you're gonna drop into Google Drive. And then your finals also 30%. So that leaves 5% is class participation. And what class participation means is that you are asking questions. You know, I can tell you're paying attention. You're writing notes when you need to. You're engaged. You talk during discussion. And I know it's 8:30 in the morning. My body and brain do not do early mornings, so I understand if you're like tired and stuff. But usually by the end of the semester, you have a pretty good idea of a level of participation. So that 5% is where that's going. All right, let's see. Who wants to start? So,
I would like to start.
you have one?
I raised my hand for a question before you did. So.
All right, you gotta go. That one is good, but the important one I see is the shift and select multiple individual pieces. Yeah. Select. Simplified property. Here's what's fine then. Yeah, perfect. I'm telling you.
That's all you want is you have to be the same.
Oh, it's too expensive.
But I'm just like, there's nothing about like. Well, yeah, I'm like, maybe. I mean, but I'm like, maybe. But I like, I don't know what's it's just not working out. I do it, but I'm like, because I was still because I was just some really cute like, but he looks like a person. Yeah, he's like,
Alright, you should be good to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, so multiple selection using the shift button. Yeah, individual. And then while you're still holding shift, do it which is click on that. Yeah, so click on that one-on-one level. So if you're on that diagram 2D, on the left side of your mouse, do a double click. Now try it. There you go. So when you do it, remember that it must be all the way around so that even if a little server died, it won't do it. And then select by property.
Yesterday.
That wasn't me.
No.
That wasn't me.
Huh? No. You thought that about there.
And go, so whatever color you choose, like a color projection, the Kaylee is very, like, with me, it's dude, so you might want to use that, but yeah, so the box should be
Actually, really cool.
your selection where you
I know.
So.
Is this like, I don't know my collection. Do you know any? So, remember that? Probably something. So I was gonna order I could do like the version of. You Twitter? If I find someone that's valuable,
I'm sorry. She could have texted you. It's alright. Yeah, but I have a meeting too this evening. Okay. Sorry.
or do I stick with this? So, because I have so many dresses, this is right. I like how it's But it might be really nice to do a print into like a bird. Kind of think that we can print this huge. But I think with the bodysuit that like actually so every exercise probably like the treatment. Yeah. We're ready to tell.
A lot better. I feel great. I'm glad to be out.
Because our teacher mentioned that you were feeling well last time, so it's like,
Sorry?
the teacher mentioned you weren't feeling well last time, so it's like, oh no.
Yeah, like I was in isolation earlier this month, and then they extended it through like last week. But I feel a lot better now.
Yeah, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Did you have a good break? Yeah.
Not a good break. It was fun. I went to the Outer Banks.
Oh, okay. Well, I love your hat.
Thanks. How about you?
I feel that my ponytail.
Yeah. Did you get the gown? Did you get the fabric?
For cuts.
Yeah.
I don't have mine yet, but I have the time to do slippers, so I'm hoping like,
Yeah, I got it.
yeah, do you have your fabric?
But, you know, I heard it on but it's like, how hard you are.
But I don't really have
Okay, that's. And you just got like white. Is it also my question was like, is it like yeah, it's on the cut so. I think she mentioned that maybe she just combined stuff. I got like an email that said like combine them, so I'm not sure. Yeah. Sorry. I was reading and I was like, this is not that big, so I was thinking it's not that much, but every time I swipe up, it's big. She kind of fits in that aesthetic. Now it's in the market, people are doing that all for free. Because it will actually, I have it.
Yeah, she's
So like we're
not just,
since it's like
she's not just fiance. I think we have eventually get married, but.
See? Okay. I
Oh,
thought
it's not great.
Finally downloaded it and got 20 files, and it was all random.
I should be like, I'll. Okay, let's see. We got
Just information.
And then I try to pull it back down. Try to pull it back down for arm. Yeah.
I'm caught up with it.
The jacket's coming off, so I think.
This has been doing I can't wait for them to take those collars off. I don't even know how many nails they put out literally. Like my whole nail is back. Are you doing it? Should I do it or live in another bathroom? I just don't think it. That's the first time I had that I was like, yeah, like the other day. And he was like scratching my face. Like I would go back and hang out with his sisters.
Oh,
Stilettos is too much. Because I know I would break it.
I'll stay with everybody. Right, you guys.
Are you gonna get settled or are you just sitting?
Okay, and nothing, other about the plaster project?
I thought when you were taking an Uber to like the bagel place, I could have been up to the parking lot. And I was like, what'd you guys get? And they were just like, well, that's the tea because most of the time they're not looking at like is that for Charlotte? She had wins expired for the longest time in her life.
I'm just worried about like those.
Well, I didn't really think about that until
True.
And for like the new name, so it's supposed to like our inspiration is supposed to look like those clothes, like we'll make them, but like it'd be like I want to do stuff actual clothes. Like dumbing down the whole Yeah, that's not what's happening. Yeah, that's
For like the whole class, I was like trying to download everything, so I kind of missed like that class because I had to get a WinRAR like unzipper to put the thing into compress it. But now I have like everything.
So the good thing about that is that it wasn't too intensive of a class, and it's just sort of the selection and navigation stuff, so it should be fine. But ask me anything ever. Okay. And then unselect the specific thing. And then you want to do marquee. And that's the default selection, but then when you want to get to a very specific shape and do a marquee lasso, you want to right click with the right button on the mouse, which I assume is a single finger click, double click in the background. So it, when you double click in the background, you want to start dragging and see if it gives you a drawing line. There you go. So drag, click, drag, click. Yeah, there you go. And it has to be that marquee lasso surrounds the entire pattern shape. If it cuts off any type of sliver, it won't select it. And the last one is select by property. So I'll give you the line select. There you go. That's pattern select. Hey. I didn't know you were coming in today.
Yeah, I'll be coming in once in a while. It's a hybrid class.
Oh.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah. Yeah, I couldn't do this class in addition. I couldn't be here enough for it.
Well, this is your class. These are your babies. But I'm super excited about this flow class. I can't wait for them to be in it and exploring it. And I think they're going to have so much value added to their skills.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting too because it's going to help so much that it's in person.
Yes. Yeah.
It's going to help.
Big time. I think so.
We started this the first class was May 2020. So of course it was online.
Right in the middle of it.
Not really. It kind of, because I've done a lot of like computer classes in the past, so it kind of seems not straightforward, but like the same like demo and like
You know how to reach me, same for you, Megan. Anytime my cell is automatic.